I think a snow cone machine for you, Paul. You like snow cones, don't you?
Hi, I'm going to be reviewing the Rocky films because I watched them all in one go the other week now. I wanted to do a review sooner, but it's been like a couple weeks, I think. Possibly. The Rocky films are a boxing epic that takes place over a series of 7 films now. The majority of these are filmed in Philadelphia, in America, in this kind of dilapidated, I don't know what you would call it. It's just like this slummy group of tenement blocks and flats down a back alley in Philadelphia, and I'm guessing that they're all set when they're filmed. So the first one is set in 1976, second one 1979, the third one 1982, the fourth one 1985, the fifth one 1990, the sixth one 2007, and seventh one Creed 2016. So you're getting a big kind of slice of history there, like every 2 films, I think. Mostly every 1 or 2 films is set in a different decade. So you get to see things happening in the background that is really interesting to me, like all these little things that are of their time that are going on. See what life was like in the mid-70s all the way up to now. Although a lot of it is very fictionalized. There are like robots and ridiculous computer games and things like that. So Rocky's the main character, played by Sylvester Stallone, who also directs and writes. The writing is a bit iffy in places, but it's a kind of a heartwarming thing about this dumb... I don't know how he got to be an adult and still stay so dumb. He's kind of like playing the heartwarmingly dumb character his only passion is fighting and practicing boxing. Apart from that, he lives in a crappy little house. He must be in his 20s, I guess, when it starts. He's kind of on the dead-end street sort of thing. A very poor neighbourhood. And he wants to date the girl from the pet store, and he's friends with her brother Paulie, and the girl is Adrian, which sounds like a boy's name to me. I've heard of Adria as a girl's name, but not Adrienne. Rocky trains at Mick's, where this old guy is like the coach there. It's like a boxing training centre in Philadelphia, and he always like runs down the street doing that. Like, he's really into it. He can't get out of his habit, his focus for like one of the only things he loves. He always walks past these like tramp guys on the street corner who are singing. I was trying to think of a word for it, but they're singing a kind of music on the street corner as he goes by, and he's like buddies with all the kind of poor kids and stuff in the neighbourhood. Knows everyone's name. He's like a local eccentric, I guess, to all the people he passes. There's loads of weird, good sayings in this that people are just using as insults. So at one point someone goes, "You're a tomato, Rocky! You're a tomato!" And everyone around him's going, "You're a bum! You're just a bum! You're not going to amount to anything, you're a bum." That's first said by like an old lady. At the start, Mick, his coach guy, really kind of dislikes him and doesn't give a shit about him. Doesn't want to give him a chance. And then as things go on, like Mick is pleading with him to train him because he's got a slice of fame. Apollo Creed, at the very start, is already a big shot boxer. He's like famous and rich and living in a giant house with a swimming pool, and he's like in a skyscraper with these businessmen like going, "We gotta do something different, we gotta do something different." I know, why don't we give someone like from no background, from nothing, give them a chance. It just so happens that for some reason he's scanning down lists and he happens on Rocky's boxing name, the Italian Stallion, and just off hearing his name, the Italian Stallion, he chooses him to give the big chance to do kind of a boxing match against Apollo, the champion, as a kind of charity competition thing. And I'm ridiculously hot now, so for continuity's sake, I've taken off my jacket. It didn't just magic off me. And one of the things that Rocky's into that I thought they'd actually develop into a longer storyline later on was that he's sort of involved with, it looks like the mafia. I always thought it was the mafia, but people keep saying he's a loan shark, and that's a different thing. I'm not really too up on what a loan shark does. It looks like he's just like being a mafia henchman, like breaking people's fingers for this mafia looking guy who all these people in the local neighbourhood owe debts to. So it's a pretty rough background, and Paulie's always in the background going, "Yeah, Rocky, you got to give me a job with that guy." So they've got nowhere to go in life. Basically, they're taking jobs like this. So at one point, Paulie and Rocky are all in the local pub sort of thing, and they're watching TV in the pub, and it's the millionaire boxer Apollo Creed, and they're all like watching him and talking him like about him, like he's who they all want to be, and he's who they all aspire to. You know, watching all these films, I get a sense that there's very little racism, if any, shown in any of these films. And these films span back to 1976. I mean, there was racism going on in real life in some parts of America, but these films didn't really dwell on that. And when Rocky's walking back home one day, he encounters this kind of little girl on the street corner with a bunch of her friends, and they're all fairly young, but they're all kind of smoking teens, basically. For some reason, Rocky drags this girl off the street corner out of the crowd, and he goes, "Hey, why you hang out with those coconuts on that street corner? They're lemons."
Hey, Rocky, how about a bottle, huh?
No wine. Hey, Murray, did your brother know you're hanging out so late?
Where'd you get lost?
Hey, these guys teach you to talk like that?
Stop, man.
Hey, don't you never say that to me. Come here. Because that's the way guys are. They laugh when you talk dirty, they think you're cute. But after a while, you get a reputation. That's it. You get no respect. You see, they don't remember you. They remember the rest. Because you're hanging out with them coconuts in the corner. You understand? You hang out with them coconuts, you get nowhere. They're lemons.
And later on in, I think, Rocky Balboa, the 6th film, she comes back as a major character. There isn't really racism in these films, but there is, like, at one point, like a stuck-up businessman behind a desk at Apollo's meeting who's just enraged at everything. And he's just so elitist and high and mighty. But once Apollo puts the proposition to him of the new contender, he just immediately likes it because it represents, like, the American dream and, like, hope for all newcomers and that sort of thing that people used to champion in those days. But if Apollo hadn't had the idea of giving like a new low experience boxer an opportunity, Rocky never would have even gone anyplace. As said before, Rocky wants to date the girl Adrian down the pet store, and is friends with Paulie, her brother, who's a real asshole jerk, basically. He treats his sister like shit, even though he himself is a bum, like everyone claims Rocky is, and they're all kind of not going anywhere, and they all kind of take it out on each other. But, I mean, Rocky doesn't. He's kind of down to earth, and he doesn't kind of hate on anyone, really. So Paulie convinces Rocky that he should take his sister out on a date, and Rocky turns up at their house, and I think it's Thanksgiving, and they're all, like, she's cooking a turkey or something in the oven, and Paulie's such an asshole, I don't know why he does this, he grabs the turkey out of the oven, I think, and, like, I think he chucks it out the window. She's, like, crying, and rightly so, and goes to her room, and Paulie still convinces Rocky to stay and try and take her out on a date.
You hungry, Rock?
She's in a bad mood. I'm in a bad mood.
You know how to do funny things. You want to go out with my sister?
Yeah.
Oh. You're doing fine. Keep doing what you're doing.
I don't know. Would you like to maybe, you want me to go out together? What do you think? Would you like to? We're gonna have a good time. We'll have a real good time, you know?
Basically, it's the worst way possible you can think of to start a date. She's crying in her room, and like Rocky's like outside her room knocking on her door, persistently trying to get her to go out with him. Finally, begrudgingly, she decides to put on her kind of clothes and these really spectacularly awful glasses, like the really kind of thick framed, kind of sharp, you know how they go pointy right at the end there? These horrible glasses. And she agrees to go with him out to the ice skating rink, which I think is closed when they get there. It keeps getting ridiculously hot and the sun has come out, so this is the most goofy fail of a date ever. No part of this date do I think that this is a good way to start any kind of relationship.
Woo! You know how I got started in fighting? Huh?
No.
Am I talking too loud?
3 minutes!
So he gives Adrian ice skates and Rocky just goes running around the ice rink with just shoes on. And he's like running around chasing her in a big wide circle around the ice rink, like talking his face off about nothing. And she's just not having it, not responding to any of it, just thinks he's strange. And he is kind of strange, but he's kind of naive and dumb and kind of endearing. I think the thing they're trying to illustrate about Rocky in these early days is that he's dumb and he doesn't really know what he's doing. He doesn't know any better. He's not fully in control of... I mean, he doesn't even know how to act in a relationship because he has no understanding of that. He has like no education, it seems, and he hasn't been told, and this does look very much like his first relationship as well, and as a result he's just doing all the wrong things that you could possibly think of to do. And at one point later on that gets a bit much, which kind of defines something bad about the series. So after the ice rink he like persuades her to go back home with him on the premeditation that he's going to bring Adria inside and kind of continue the date in his apartment. And so she walks to his home with him, and they're outside the steps to his home, and he's like, come in, and she's like, no, and he's like, oh, come in, and she's like, no, I'm not coming in, and he's like, oh, come on, you gotta come in, she's like, no, I'm not coming in. Says it like 3 times there. I'm not coming in. And he does this sort of like, oh, I'm gonna leave the door open and then you're gonna come through it. The thing they're trying to show with Adria at this point is that she is ridiculously shy, and they're trying to show that his persistence breaks her shyness, sort of thing. But you can totally see why she'd not want to go into his flat on the first date. Especially since the first date was so horrendously bad. And once she begrudgingly once again like wanders into the open door of Rocky's flat, he's got a sofa just covered in newspapers. Like I thought before that moment that bum was some sort of metaphor or something, and like they were using it in some 70s way that I wasn't aware of, but no, they actually meant bum. he's like very trampy. He's like sleeping on a sofa full of newspapers. He's like, yeah, come sit down. He's like, what is it, newspapers? Moves the newspapers and like goes, do you want to sit on the couch with me? And he's being overbearing the whole time, like crowding her space, trying to get really close to her, and she's just having none of it. She doesn't want to be any part of it. It's really clear she wants to go home. And who can blame her? This is luxury, isn't it? Like newspaper all over the couch. At one point he's like, here, let me show you my 2 little tortoise pets. And he gets a tank and there's 2 little tortoises, and she's like, I know, I sold them to you. Because she works at the pet store where he got the tortoises to begin with. Now this whole scene, and especially the next bit, the scene that follows, I'm not a feminist, but Jesus, I can see things wrong with the way he acts in this scene. And I think the way it's written is that firstly it's a product of its time, and there are a lot more people like this, not that that's an excuse for anything, and secondly he's ridiculously dumb, naive and uneducated at something like the age of 20, which I can't understand how he got like that, but lives in a very poor neighbourhood, and this is obviously his first relationship. He's not sure what the fuck he's doing, and it shows because he starts doing bad things and unempathic things. He doesn't really empathise with how she would feel, and she's like, I'm not comfortable, I should go, and he stops her leaving the front door by putting his arm in front of her and closing the front door.
Don't go.
As she's trying to leave and go through it. That just strikes me. I mean, watch the scene, and I don't know. You tell me if there's some way that you think his actions are all right. But I think, I know you're dumb, Rocky, but Jesus Christ, you're being a colossal idiot, and you need to learn fast. I was actually getting quite angry with it when I was watching. I mean, I'd seen the Rocky films before, like once. So I guess this was the second time I was watching. I just saw that bit where he puts his arm on the door and shuts it in front of him, and I was like going, "You colossal asshole!" Like, I thought he was more in control than he was. I thought he was less dumb than he was. Like, you should fucking know better that is not what you do to someone. And then so he's leaning over her and he's like, "Take off those glasses." And before she can say anything, he takes them off himself. Take off that hat. He takes them off her himself. This is a very basic level of consent, and all that is, if you ask someone to do something, and then you don't wait for their answer and you just do it anyway. I mean, it's not a criminal offence unless it figures into it things like sex, because then it becomes rape, of course, but Jesus Christ, just, like, doing things without people's permission just makes you quite an asshole. I don't think it veers into the territory of consent necessarily. I'd say it's more of a thing about permissions. And it just annoys me when someone asks me if they can do something and I either don't say anything because I haven't got around to answering them, or I don't answer them, or I say no and they still do it. I hate when that happens. It's happened to me, like, while I was at work and while I was at uni quite a few times. I'm just like, fuck's sake, I didn't say I could do that and you did it. You're a dick. And then he goes on to say, I want to kiss you, you don't have to kiss me back. And he kisses her anyway, while arms surrounding her, while leaning on her only exit, which she was trying to go through. You tit! And I mean, there's the exit she was trying to go through, and then right where she is, there's the corner of the room, and he's physically surrounding her on all sides. She's physically cornered by his arms, and he's a big fucking guy, Rocky, so, and he's forced her into this, a bad date. He's forced her into, like, a relationship she didn't want to be in, and she's too shy to kind of pipe up and go, no, no, no. Which she should be saying, but it is very difficult for shy people sometimes when you're being kind of pushed into a corner like that. And I should know, I've been kind of shy and introverted for a long time, and you know, people get away with a lot by taking advantage of how quiet you are. It's not good, but he is extremely naive and dumb, and yeah, I don't know, watch the scene yourself and make up your own mind. So moving on, I knew I'd seen the other Rocky films before. Like, it was a long time ago, so kind of distant in my memory, so I was going over a lot of stuff and rediscovering it in a way. And I thought that one event would tarnish the entire films to come after that point, because I'm like, I know she becomes his wife at some point after this, and she's there for almost all the films, and her entire relationship is predicated on this beginning. But anyway, I continued with an open mind. More vintage insults. You dumb dago! Mick originally hates him at this point, I think, because he's doing dealings with this mafia guy, being like breaking fingers for loans and things. Yeah, it's just basically a criminal underworld guy. He might as well be from the mafia. Basically, it's that kind of shady, using violence to enforce financial stuff sort of thing. And Mick doesn't like Rocky for this, understandably so. I say there was no overt racism in this film, but there was one point where Apollo's at a press conference with Rocky, and one of the journalists goes, "Hey Apollo, Is it a coincidence that you're fighting a white man? I'm like, shut that journalist down. I think that might have been the only instance I could see overt racism in the Rocky movies. So there's one sad scene where Mick comes to Rocky's apartment, and even though he's been hating on Rocky for being in this mafia deal, he's seen that Rocky's getting into the title fight with Apollo. He's been selected, and he's like, I want to train you now, Rocky. You could be best under my trainership. So it's like, Mick gets into training Rocky for all the wrong reasons, you know, kind of fame and money and success. And he goes to his apartment, but Rocky's already like having none of it. He's like, oh no, you said you wouldn't train me, so where were you when I needed you? Like, fuck you. And this is a really, I think the scene goes on for a bit too long, but Mick's like this old has-been boxer. It's kind of sad how Rocky kind of neglects Mick in that scene, and as Mick's leaving out in the corridor, Rocky's like passive-aggressively shouting at him, like, where were you when I needed you? You're just, you know, like, and then Mick's just this really kind of sad old man, and he wanders out onto the street, and then Rocky, in a musical montage, immediately takes it all back and runs down the street, and you can see if you just look, like, Mick sees Rocky running down the street towards him, and he thinks he's going to hit him. He's like, and then Rocky's like pats him on the shoulder, makes up with him. It's in the distance, so you don't know what they're saying. But I'm always fascinated at what these like 1970s people have on the tables in their houses. All these little things in the background. It's really interesting. So I'm constantly picking out things in the background just to go, whoa, that's not like the modern day at all. So there's a nice music cue around here where he leaves his flat jogging, and you can tell that this is where his life gets back on track after being a bum. Like the music kicks in at that moment, and it really picks the film up, because the film's been very kind of slow and static and flat up to this point. Like you're just in with them, like impoverished. And then suddenly there's this kind of hope moment. The Philadelphia Steps appear, and that's a thing that goes through the whole, like I think almost every film. Maybe not Rocky IV. Almost every film has the Philadelphia Steps in them in one way or another, and that must have given the city of Philadelphia some kind of tourist hotspot. It must be pretty iconic for trainers making the city famous. So Rocky and Adrian are going out, and there's a bit of crude humour where Rocky and Paulie are talking, and Paulie's like, you and my sister, what's the attraction? I don't see it. Despite that he got her into this fucking thing. And he's always like keeping tabs on her from this point out. Like, hey, are you seeing my sister still? What's happening with you and my sister? What are you and my sister doing? So he goes, you and my sister, what's the attraction? I don't see it. And Rocky replies with, fills gaps, I guess. She's got gaps, I got gaps. I'm not sure whether to laugh or punch him after that line. Actually I'll probably laugh because he would annihilate me. But oh, that was terrible. 70s background moment. There are toddlers sitting in the streets whacking sticks together with bits of string on them. Beats having a smartphone, I guess. There's a thing at this point where Adria's meant to be the brains and Rocky's meant to be the brawn in their relationship, but she literally buys him a dog for Christmas. And she runs a pet store. Are you sure? Do you know the saying? So it's around here that Rocky goes to Paulie's job at like a meat packing business or a butcher's or something, and starts beating up the hanging cow carcasses as a form of training. Someone wants to do a TV interview with him at the butcher's.
Is this a common training method? I mean, do other fighters pound raw meat?
No, I think I invented it.
I think it's still around Christmas. Rocky moves in with Adria and Paulie, who have their own house. And Paulie goes absolutely mental and starts threatening them and saying, you owe me everything, Adria. And like, what am I getting out of this relationship that you two are having? And like, he's like threatening them with violence, but kind of half-heartedly. It doesn't really work for him to threaten Rocky, because he's a boxer.
You're just a jealous, lazy bum.
Get on the job.
All you had to do was ask.
And even Adria can stand her ground pretty well against him. she like starts screaming back to him, "What do I owe you, Paulie? What do I owe you?" And he's like, "You're supposed to be good to me." And you get the idea that although Paulie's supposed to be this aggressive jerk who does ridiculously bad things, he's got no one around him who he can fight and win against, so he's just constantly the losing bum. And they kind of look after him as his carer after they kind of realise, and after he realises that he's not getting anywhere. Rocky walks into the empty boxing ring where he's going to fight Apollo, and it's just like he's never been in a massive boxing ring like that before, and the walk around just reminded me of Gladiator, like, it's the Colosseum, Spaniard. There's a kind of loop around looking at all the seats surrounding him. Apollo comes in wearing all these kind of bright American kind of colours on his shorts and stuff, and Rocky's like, "Yeah, it looks like a big flag." At one point Rocky sees a poster of him and the colours of his shorts are wrong or something, and he points it out to someone who's with him, and I'm wondering if the continuity advisors got that scene filmed after they realised he was wearing different shorts from the poster, like after the fact. So they have the fight, and it's at one point near the end of the fight, Rocky's like eye gets so bruised that it closes up, and he says to one of the guys at the corner of the ring, "Hey, I can't see, cut my eye open, man." And I don't understand, I mean, that seems so dangerous, how the guy gets a knife out and cuts his eyelid open. Is that a common thing that happens in the corner of boxing rings? I found out after watching that Talia Shire, the actress who played Adrian in the Rocky films, was actually Francis Ford Coppola's sister. Whoa, I did not know that.